The 14 community is on fire right now, and as somebody myself who wanted to release a job tier list today, we're instead going to be talking about why people think 14 is dying. Whether it be the endless amount of YouTube videos, Reddit threads, and forum posts, I'm going to go through and tell you guys why people are making these in the first place, and exactly what's changed to cause this sentiment, and then hopefully get back to making my original video. So with that said, my name is Serv. If you enjoy the video, consider subscribing, leaving a comment, and liking the video, and with that, let's get started. Now, of course, the first thing that people are looking at when they're suggesting that 14 might be dying is the player numbers. That is what defines a dead game. And these player numbers can actually be tracked thanks to a certain individual who keeps a player census and has been doing so for the past decade, roughly. And through this, we can see that on Dawntrail's launch, there was approximately 1.44 million players playing 14. However, way fewer players returned to play 7.1 than any previous expansion, and this number only continued to get worse, as we are now, for the first time since 2021, seeing Final Fantasy XIV's player base drop beneath 1 million. This means we have lost roughly 450,000 players since Dawntrail released, and to give you an idea of how concerning this number is, back in around 2018, when Stormblood was the current expansion, the total player base was only about 500,000 players. So if we had a player base decrease as large as we just had with Dawntrail back then, 14 wouldn't even exist. There would be not even 100,000 people playing the game. When I sat down to make this video, I didn't even know that. I used to play during Stormblood, and to know that the entire player base back then, that entire group of people, is equal to how many people have quit Dawntrail, blows my mind, to be quite honest. So that's immediately concerning, and considering how much 14 has abandoned the old style of gameplay we had in Stormblood, you know, kind of a funny number. Maybe the Stormblood players themselves are who left. Conveniently, this is very relevant right now, for better or worse. So about 2 weeks ago, if you watch any of my other content, you'll have seen that I made a video discussing how the Astrologian's gameplay fantasy is expressed through its game mechanics, and how that's an incredibly important thing for a role-playing game. When you play a job, you should feel like you are actually playing the role of that job. And seeing as I'm about halfway through a game design degree, where I spent a lot of time discussing gameplay fantasy design, my next video was supposed to be a tier list, where I rank the jobs based on how well their gameplay fantasy is represented through their gameplay mechanics. Among the top of my tier list was intended to be Black Mage. But it just so happens that as I was in the middle of writing a script to discuss Black Mage for that video, it was revealed that in 7.2, Black Mage will be losing its entire job identity and having its core gameplay mechanics deleted. If you are a Black Mage main and you've only just learned about this through my own video, I'm very sorry to have to be the way that you learn this. But yes, this is something that 14 has been doing to its jobs for many years. Take the thing that makes the job unique, the thing that made people feel invested in the job, and then remove it. Their reasons for doing this are usually kept vague or obscured, but ultimately what it does is take something that has a player base, and then remove that thing that caused it to gain this player base, so that people who didn't like the job now have a chance to like it. Which doesn't sound all that bad on paper until it's your favorite job that ends up on the chopping block. And suddenly the thing that was drawing you to this game is gone. If you've been playing since 4.0, which is Stormblood, you would have seen firsthand when almost every single job in the game had that exact same thing happen to them. The tanks lost most of their identities, except for Dark Knight, which completely lost everything that made the job what it is. The healers lost the abilities that made them engaging to play, with White Mage being the only one to receive any compensation for the game mechanics that were taken from them. Of course, the DPS underwent similar treatment too. There was this massive design shift where so much of what made 14 fun for so many people was deleted. And I won't lie, having been excited for Shadowbringers and then logging on and 5.0 patch day, only to find out that everything that I liked about the game was just kind of deleted overnight, really ruined the game for me. I'll be honest. And I, just as many other players had, were holding out hope that the game we loved would recover one day and make a comeback. But it's been about 6 years now, and it just never did. Now, if you never got a chance to experience 4.0, and you're curious why people who played back then never shut up about it, I'm going to attach a link to an archive of the 4.0 job guide if you're curious what your favorite job might have done back then. Anyways, moving on. Back in the day, dungeons, duty finder content, even that used to have some degree of challenge to it. You actually had to play the game well in order to clear, which meant engaging with your job's toolkit and expressing a degree of skill and decision-making. Tank busters in dungeons were hitting for like 70% of a tank's health. Heal checks were real in all content, and DPS players were more important because the rest of the party actually needed things to die. Everyone had a role to play. Nowadays, you can take a Dark Knight into a level 90 plus dungeon with 3 melee DPS and clear the thing with ease. And I know because I've done it. But here's a very particular issue that I want to bring up, because you see, with all of the complexity being removed from the game, you might think that this is a really good thing for casuals. But in reality, casual players are the ones who suffered the most from this change. And with the casual market being so huge, I think this is a big contributing factor in why we're seeing such a huge player drop-off. Because casual content back then would have been dungeons and trials and alliance raids. Content you just queue up for in the duty finder. You don't need to do EXs or Savage or whatever if you just want something to do, because back then, normal duties, like dungeons, actually used to be real content. Jobs were far more engaging and interactive, and they had different synergies with each other, and their own unique mechanics they had to manage, even during simple content. And so when 5.0 launched, and they nullified when they nullified all of the mechanics that made these jobs fun and interesting, they also, at the same time, made every job in the game ridiculously tanky, high damage, and overloaded their healing tools. And this was kind of their compensation for making everything, for lack of a better word, brain dead. And what this caused is effectively the removal of content for casual players. Because now, if you queue up for normal content, you can literally not press any buttons other than, let's say, the first part of your combo. Just press the same button over and over and over and over again. In a dungeon, in a trial, alliance raid, it doesn't matter. As long as it's not high-end content, it does not matter what you do, if anything. You can just press one button, pick a button, press it, whatever button you want, and you will still clear the content at roughly the same speed. And you will not notice a difference in your ability to complete the content by the end. Of course, if you're a healer, that button had better be a heal. But anyways, when a player realizes this, that what they do doesn't actually matter, they start to feel disillusioned by the game. The level of interactivity they're getting from the content is suddenly no different from watching a cutscene. Because it doesn't matter what you do. You just press the continue button and the cutscene will play until it's completed. And unfortunately, that's what's become of casual content. It now has the same challenge, the same engagement level as a cutscene. But you can watch a cutscene only a couple of times before it becomes boring. And that's why the casual player base has been complaining about a lack of content for so many years now. Yes, they release so many extremes and savages and ultimates, but who cares? The casual market doesn't touch those. They don't consider it content. And now that the replayability has been drained out of Duty Finder, there's only one piece of content in this live service game for casuals to play, and that's the exploratory zones like Eureka and Boja. But those don't release until 1 year, or 11 months, into an expansion. Hi, sorry, post-edit serve here. Just wanted to mention that Endwalker didn't even have an exploration zone. There was nothing. Just want to put that out there. So you're telling the entire casual market that if they want content that's made for them, something where they can just log on with their friends or alone, not need to watch a guide, and just simply engage with the game, they'll have to wait 1 year after the release of the expansion they bought for their live service game, and suddenly it's no longer a shocker that the casual players who care about gameplay are leaving. And of course, that isn't even addressing the fact that you have to wait roughly 4 months in between content patches, where, like I've said, the casual market feels like they're getting next to nothing every patch. But of course, there's also another very prominent group of people in 14, and that is the people who play for the story. However, according to the player census, those people are not very happy either, as, allegedly, only 60% of players who resubscribed for the Dawntrail MSQ actually finished it before unsubscribing, which is to say, so many people were so displeased with Dawntrail that before even finishing that entire story, they just canceled their sub and logged off of the game and didn't come back. Now, look, I can make like a 3-hour rant about every little thing that annoyed me in Dawntrail's story and the writing issues it has. I mean, the number of just actual beginner level writing failures and plot holes and retcons and whatever's happening with their inability to make a character actually feel human instead of a cardboard cutout. There's just too much for me to go over, especially in this video. Even 3 hours might not be enough, so I'm not going to talk about it very much, other than the fact that lmao was like maybe 3 sentences of like the feedback rants I was putting on the Square Enix forums. Yeah, lmao is a not so great character. I didn't hate her like I did Lise in Stormblood. I just felt disappointed. The thing that actually ruined Dawntrail for me was how the Scions were written, and how the Warrior of Light was written, and how there was such little attention to detail to the previous expansions, or how lazy their method of dealing with the fact that they just made the Warrior of Light a Goku-level threat and now don't know what to do with them. I was expecting Dawntrail to be like a sort of summer vacation mystery story, like the fucking Wizards of Waverly Place movie, where instead of testing the character's power, we're testing their mind and having them go on some kind of adventure discovering ancient gods or something in Tural, but instead we got this, and you all have your own opinions of the story. Ultimately, how you feel about it is subjective, but what is not subjective is the Steam reviews and the Metacritic reviews and, well, like I just said, the amount of players who quit the game before even finishing the story. So, successfully, Dawntrail has alienated the people who enjoy the game's content, we've alienated the people who enjoy the game's story, and all we really have left are the people who treat 14 like it's a shitty version of VR chat or like a Second Life or something. And while that's a sizable number of people, a very sizable number, and that makes up plenty of subscriptions, those players can get the same thing they're getting out of 14, but arguably better in another game like VR chat, like I just said, where they won't get banned for having their own custom avatars and shit. So I'm not really sure what 14 is leaning on at this point. And whether or not the game is dying? I mean, I don't want to say that I think it is. Maybe it's just Cope that's telling me that it's not, but I feel like 14 still has a chance to redeem itself. It's just a matter of whether or not it will. So let me know in the comments what you think, and I'm gonna end this video now because I feel like if I keep going, I'm gonna start ranting for another, I don't know, 40 minutes. So, with that, I thank you all for watching to the end if you did. If you enjoy my content, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video, which I hope is that tier list. Peace.